I want to thank the families for allowing me to be their voice and to acknowledge that my voice is theirs. Thank you for the trust. I won't let you down. When we think of an interview, we picture someone with questions and someone with answers. That's not what happened here. I came with questions, but so did the families. As I listened deeply, I understood that the most precious information was buried in what wasn't said, what was hidden. I heard how you felt powerless and abandoned, and what that does to the human condition, and the regret that you didn't ask your fathers questions. But how could you? It was understood that you had to stay silent. And that silence was passed on to your children. Intuitively, you felt the shame. You wondered whether you could have done more. That's the difficult part of revisiting the past. We reevaluated with today's eyes, and then we can be so hard on ourselves. I sat through those pauses, those long pauses that told me you were trying to make sense of the past. When it was too painful, I guided you elsewhere, and I realized some wounds will never heal. You asked me why your father was interned. The authorities made decisions on what if, and you told me what was. And we couldn't connect the dots. And this is why you needed validation. Your father was not a criminal. Despite the fact that you were fully integrated and spoke 3 languages, some of you had to flush your Italian identity. A culture and civilization that has contributed at least 40% to the world's patrimony had to be whitewashed to fit in with the society here. A few of you made that long trip to Petawawa with your mother to visit your father at the camp. And during that 30 minutes that they gave you, your father said, "Everything is good, and I am well." And your mother said, "Everything is good, and we are well." Those wrong tales are a valuable lesson. They show how an unselfish character that they had, and I'm not sure we're ever going to see that again. Sometimes I couldn't ask you any questions because tears were coming down your eyes. And that was hard. I could sense you wanted to talk, but neither of us knew where to begin. Your stories silenced me. Your lives shifted, but you were expected to act like nothing happened. You watched your mother's struggle, no, battle, to survive. And then you told me how she never complained. What I didn't hear was fatalism. Instead, I heard stories of action. Rather than cry out, "We are victims," you buckled down and invented strategies of survival. Your families had to do the extraordinary just to get through the ordinary, and that's what makes you extraordinary. Angela Minicucci brought us back to 1940 and shifted us here in the Casa d'Italia. I'd like to pick up where she left off. Some of you knew Salvatore Vistarchi. He owned the restaurant Lanterna Verde. He kept notes on his arrest. I'm going to retrace his footsteps. I'm going to take you for a walk. June 10th, 1940, the RCMP begin their roundup from Champ de Mars. 10:30 at night, Salvatore Vistarchi hears a knock at the door. He gets out of bed to answer it. The men identify themselves as RCMP and show him a court order for his arrest. While he's getting dressed, 2 officers search his house. Vistarchi is brought to the police station right over here on Shamrock. He is searched. Papers, money, and cigarettes are taken away. And he's locked in a cell with other Italians. He figures he's going to be released tomorrow. Tuesday, June 11th. It's 1 minute after midnight. The steel door of the cell opens. 2 policemen escort the men to a wagon that awaits them. They are confused, tired, and hungry. Salvatore thinks maybe they're going home. On the contrary, they find themselves at the provincial police station at Old Montreal. Another search, another cell door opens. Vistarchi describes what he sees. There are over 100 Italians in here in a cell that could not contain over 40 people. The air is tremendously stuffy and suffocating. The toilet is in the same room and smells terrible. Everyone is looking pale and extremely worried. The men try to comfort each other. Detectives start calling names from a list considered to be the dangerous men. The group is locked in the dangerous cell. Here we find doctors, entrepreneurs, professors, artists, businessmen, musicians, men of law and science, journalists and writers. They form little groups and start discussing the war. They conclude that they are arrested for something that is happening on another continent. There's nothing they can do except wait for justice. By late afternoon, sandwiches and coffee are offered. Nobody eats. A few drink the so-called coffee. The men ask, what's going to be done to them? Some speculate that they're going to Bordeaux jail for a few days. Others, according to Vistarchi, some state foolishly that they may be interned. His choice of the word foolishly reveals how extreme and how absurd that punishment seemed to him at the time. Wednesday, June 12th, 6 a.m. in the morning. The men are awake, nervous, hungry, and morally depressed. Notre Dame Street is jammed with newspaper photographers flashing their lights. Motor cars are lined up. Onlookers want to see the enemy aliens. One prisoner is making signals to his girlfriend in the crowd. She tries to approach, but the police hold her back. 2 buses await them. As they move away slowly, the police put on their sirens. It's a spectacle. Aboard each bus is 1 corporal and 2 soldiers, one of which has his right hand on a gun. According to Vistarchi, the men smile. There's no need for such a gesture. June 28th. The first batch of Montreal prisoners are transferred to Petawawa by train. The men ask the soldiers where they're headed, but the soldiers won't tell them. They arrive in Petawawa. Another briefing. Civilian clothes are replaced with a prisoner's uniform, with a big red circle on their back. Their bodies become targets. Their names become numbers, POW numbers.